Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're fortunate to have Fiona Foley from Royal Flying Doctors to talk Gettin Techi with it. Look, as always, very interactive today. Fiona's briefed just before. She really wants the audience to participate and get involved with these discussions. You'll see Q&A. Please send any questions through the Q&A form. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves via the chat there, and without further ado, over to you, Fiona.
Hey Ross and everybody, great to see everybody again. Thank you very much for last time. I had lots of fun, and I'll take a little bit of a different slant on it today, but asked lots of questions. So we talked a lot about getting how you keep up to date with technology, which I'll touch on again, but also I wanted today to really focus on other ways to be seen as the go-to person for technology for your business or your group of friends or colleagues or even your family. You know, it's really nice to be the person who they go to for that sort of advice with technology. And it's, for me, one of the big things that I've been thinking about in the last month as I've been going around, what is it and why do my business guys come to me of all different types and varieties? And it's because I actually help them with their personal technology as well as the business technology. So if they have a problem with their own phone, or they've got want some information about internet service providers, or want some information about security and those sorts of things, which is very topical, I think that you need to be just so open to help them out. You have to be a little bit careful because, you know, you don't want to be the, you know, doing all of their, you know, PC building or anything like that. But I think you need to be confident enough to be really up to date with things and be able to confident enough to give them some great advice. And as I talked about last time, we still have our elite private IT support Parliament of Ours group. I'm hoping that this gets a bit bigger, where it's a bit of a cool way to say to the business guys, you can come to me and it's okay to actually ask non-business related questions, because no doubt that if they come to you for something, for their personal pieces of work or something they're not sure about, guess what? They'll come to you and include you in business decisions and strategic pieces as well. So again, we'll just talk about keeping current. Again, just some more hints and tips about that. But this time I'll talk about a little bit more of a slant around it's not just being really good and up to date with the techie pieces, but you have to have those soft skills around being able to communicate to people in a language that they understand. You don't want to just take their problem and then go away in the back office and room and come back with their thing fixed or a solution. It's actually about that interaction with the business, because sometimes the guys don't actually know what they need to ask from a technical question point of view, because we use a lot of jargon. A lot of our business users use jargon too. I've got marketing departments and finance departments, and with me, aviation and medical departments that actually use a totally different language to our technical language. So it's no longer just the geeks like me who will talk big words and give things people don't understand. It's actually every department now, I think, has their own language, and it's worth learning the language of your business leaders and your business users, because it just makes that interaction so much more personable. Other things that I do, I'll actually go for a walk around the office in the mornings just to see how things are. Now, I'm doing it for me, first to make sure that there's no technical challenges out there, because I'd rather know myself than not know. But gee, just stopping and seeing what the business is up to at that particular time, you can, one, add value, but also you can get ahead of any challenges that you may have. The other thing that's really good with that is that if there is a challenge or technical problem that they have, you want them to come to you first. You don't want them to escalate things through as a challenge. Rather, it's better to come to you for that great advice. Technique, I think, that's really worth learning and practicing, and it's all about practice, is actually being able to do that when somebody's not with you. I think technology these days, even with the webinars, we need to be able to communicate when we're not actually physically in front of somebody. So that as a skill set, I think, is absolutely critical. So I would encourage everybody to have a crack at a webinar, or even try to teach somebody, a friend, how to do something over the internet. It's actually a bit of an interesting skill to learn, and it's really worthwhile practicing. So yeah, like Ross, you know, you never knew what you needed to get into when you had to do webinars and things as well. So certainly learning those soft skills and being able to use them in context of our tech, I think, is really important. Again, like what I said before, it's about introducing technology in a non-confronting way to the business. The whole world now is changing with expectations in the workforce, where they're actually wanting the workforce to be much more like home, where you want things to be immediate, you want things as a service, you want it to be personalised. So I think we need to be that way as well. And the best way to do that is with small technology, so that then you're trusted with the bigger technology as well. The other thing is about giving advice to people in your broader network, and being seen as a go-to person. It really helps with your confidence, but also you then can become a bit of a risk manager as well, to be able to understand exactly what's going out there, so you can actually decide what you need to fix or educate or whatever is going in the business. So it's really worthwhile trying to do that through technology. What I'm finding also, so I'll stop probably at that point. Has anybody got any thoughts on that around the softer side and softer skills? I know, Ross, we've got some things coming up that can also help people with that, because it's not traditionally our core skill set. For me, it's actually at times I have to, particularly early in my career, I had to really step outside my comfort zone to try and do these things. So it's a bit scary.
Yeah, and is it, everyone I'm talking to in industry and, education that's in ITs is also have this massive focus on soft skills. And I literally had 2 clients in the last 2 months, and one of them mentioned they lost a couple of $100,000 deal purely because someone in the team didn't answer the phone in the right way to an existing client and didn't have the skills to identify an opportunity. And it was way too late once it happened. So, we have a program, career development program launching in the new financial year for our members, and it's all around soft skills. It's a very interactive program of specific topics. It's not marked, it's not intensive or time intensive. It's just grouped content from videos to reports and that sort of thing, so that people have that information at hand. But yeah, I'm hearing the same thing in the industry for sure. And Shane's just come back and said people skills are very important as well.
Yeah, and Ross, it's also something that you have to really put yourself out there to try, but try it in a softer way. Just try it with a colleague, just try it with a colleague and try and take them through convincing them that a new piece of technology is really good. Get them really excited about it. Again, like I said last time, get little pieces of tech around you so that you can actually get some excitement around what's going on. And I think it makes a really big difference that it's much more personable, and you're then the go-to person for so many things in your business. And yeah. I know it's hard. It's hard sometimes to just start those conversations, but gee, it's a skill set that's really worthwhile. One of the things that I absolutely loved to hear from, I think it was about a month ago, is the beginnings of concepts called reverse mentoring, because it's not only people who are new in their career who needs to really develop the listening and soft skills, it's actually everybody in their whole career, because previously a lot of people in the really heavy duty technical people were seen as not great communicators. That was just the way the industry saw people. And the way to help those sorts of people is like this reverse mentoring, when you actually talk to somebody who's new in the industry or looking to get into the industry, so you can actually learn from them of what the questions they have and what sort of things that they need to know, rather than just being the expert in everything. You need to listen to the new people out there and the new things that are about, and also people outside our industry. So I think those sorts of things are just a really awesome idea. Little confronting for people like me, because they go, well, I know everything. Well, it's not actually the case, because there's some people who are new to the industry who have some wonderful ideas. Because one of the things that I'm seeing at the moment is our industry actually open enough to new things, which might sound really strange, but there's an awful lot of conservative techos out there. I'm at times one of them. And we know why. With this problems that we've had this week, well, not us, but with the security problems that have been around the globe recently, people get more and more and more conservative and bunker down into the no department, and you can't do that, it's too risky. But how do you make that balance? And for me, it's all about the conversation and thinking about what's risky, what's not risky, but you still have to have that really better understanding of what our business users are doing, because with all of these sorts of things, a lot of it's about end user behaviour and how they use their technology, rather than trying to beef up the technology itself, because it's just about a never-ending, very expensive way to go about it if you have to do it all through the system not allowing people to do things. But we've all become, as we said before, quite a balancing risk managers. One of the other things to gather that knowledge of the business, but also getting your profile up for me, is I do things called lunch and learns. So you just, wherever you are in a site, if you're visiting, or even if you're your own office, you just put a little thing out to say, come and have lunch with me in the lunchroom or in a meeting room, bring your lunch and I'll teach you something. And you just teach them something. Like if I've done, we haven't actually put in Office 365 here yet, but 12 months ago I actually did Office 365, how to use Word and Excel, because I knew everybody was using it at home. But what happens then, I was benefiting from that, because the more they use it at home, it means now I don't have to train them in the new technologies, which is interesting. Another aspect to that is you have to be careful that you don't dumb them down either, because if many people already know how to use the products, make sure you don't put them through a, click this sort of a training session. You're better off to actually understand that there's so much knowledge out there in the market already. Know your audience, really, really important. Very important.
There's a question about knowledge, actually. Do you see that one there, Fiona?
Yes, how important is knowledge about COBIT 5 and ITIL matters? ITIL for me, it's something, I'm ITIL certified. I think it's very important, because ITIL for me gives us some guidelines about the standards and the way that you approach things. It gives you a good structure and things. It's, for me, a checklist to make sure I've thought of things to do. And it also gives us a language where we can talk to other businesses or service providers, and we understand what service provision is. We understand what an incident is. We understand what a priority is. So for me, I think it's really a fundamental to make sure that we all speak the same language. At first I worried that ITIL, I said, but where's the rules? Where's all of the documents? It's not that, it's the guidelines, it's the vibe of things, it's the way that you approach them. So for me, I think it's really important. There's so many other different tools for project management and agile, all these other things that go around. For me, ITIL, I think, gives that baseline for the conversation and the standards, standards of change, all these things that are really important. And these other tools come over the years, different varieties and flavours, different branding of these things. But I think the basics of good change management, good coding, good incident management, good solid systems, I think is always, for me, ITIL gives me a good base. So hopefully that gives a bit of an idea about ITIL for me anyway.
Thank you.
The other things that I'd like to sort of also go into is security, which is very topical at the moment, as we know, around the world. My view of this is it's actually just happens to be some high-profile companies that have been exposed at the moment. These sorts of things have been around for a long time. The other thing that I think that is different is actually the speed of media about these things. The spread of these things, I think, has always been the same sort of pace. They're sticky and yucky, but everybody knows about it now. They know, like I knew within probably half an hour that somebody in the UK wasn't going to have their operation because of they had some problems with their PCs and a crypto of some variety. So usually we mightn't even hear about it. So for me, it was very much about it's just more visible. The new legislation in Australia makes a difference, I think, that companies now need to actually let the government know that these things have happened. I'm in two minds about that. I think it's a good thing for people to know about it, but you don't want to wreck somebody's reputation just because they may have had a bit of a gap in their security. So I don't know. Anybody thoughts on that? I'm a bit torn, Ross, with that one. It's my wanting to make sure everything's right and secure and reported, but I understand that for some particularly small businesses, it's tough.
Yeah, and look, we did a webinar on the cybersecurity report we did last year and had a bit of a challenge discussion around it, and a lot that came out of that was a lot of professionals are kind of in that point, well, where do I start for my business? And Nick Tate brought up a really good point in the sense of its risk management and understanding the risk to the business, and the analogy of none of us have 24-hour armed guards at our house, but we've all got locks on our doors, maybe a security system, and we've all got insurance. That really put it in place, and I think it gives you a really good starting point to think about how you can take on that security strategy for your own business.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we should be the go-to people when people are unsure about that as well. For instance, lots of topics around here about people, what do I have to do for my PC at home? It's okay, I think, to give people your advice, just tell them what you do yourself. But it's important, I think, again, back to ITIL, we should have certain standards that we not only apply at work, but we actually apply at home today. Like my poor children, everything gets patched all the time and things reboot and they just get used to it. We've been on the Microsoft pre-release program for years and they just get used to it, and I think that's a good thing. I'd prefer that to happen at home. Hopefully everybody does that. Definitely. Definitely. Sort of going into another area too in relation to this, the Internet of Things, we've talked about before about, what is it? It's just lots and lots of things hanging off the end of a, Wi-Fi or comms or anything like that. But again, security in relation to that's very topical. As I understand it, some of those endpoint devices are some of the ones that are going to be more and more potentially unsecure. And it's interesting, Ross talks about your security system at home and all those things. Now they're going back to base. Most of them are Wi-Fi. People, I don't think, even understand that now, even in your home, you're not realising that you're opening up to potentially, not necessarily hackers, but it could be just, personal information or these sorts of things. But again, it's a balance. I love to give information to Google so I don't have to log into everything. I love to give information to these things so I get really good advertising that's targeted to me, but it comes at a cost of some of my personal information's out there, as we've talked about before. However, for me, the actual end users and their trust in you and their communications with you and their ability and want to learn, listen to you as well, that trust is really important. Like if I send out something about a security, information, I want our users to read it. So that's soft skills is really, really important.
And just on the soft skills, I've had someone say, do we have to focus more on soft skills rather than technical skills?
I think for me it's about 50-50, because you can be the most personable and, you know, talk about things and be lovely, but if you don't have that really core fundamental technical capabilities, it's just hot air. So actually probably it's not. It's probably it's more technical, if I probably think about it. I don't know. We should do a poll next time about how much percent you think that it is tech versus soft skills, because if your tech's not solid, you can talk all you like, but you're going to just end up in a bit of a problem. Again, back to the standards and things. It's all about actually understanding the standards that you should be adhering to and being able to deliver it. So part of it also is to make sure your team are the same. Like if you've got teams working with you or for you, really important that they have those still same set of standards, and you can really do great things with them to get their soft skills up. But I think you can, I don't know, this is a big one, Ross. I think you can actually be taught the soft skills over time, but some of that really technical understanding of, I don't know, I think that you have to have a technical brain that's a little bit like zeros and ones, thinking hexadecimal, all that sort of stuff. I think that it's an art and you actually have that in you. So I think it's actually easier to learn the soft skills, because the technical stuff has to be so not negotiable, because it'd be terrifying otherwise. I don't know, that's maybe a bit controversial. What does everybody
No, that's good. And look, I mean, personally, I'm highly untechnical. So I got soft skills, but technical, I probably wouldn't have the patience to learn it myself.
Yeah, that's right. So you techies out there, you'd know that there's just something in you that, you know, you see a piece of code or you've got a problem, you just know inherently how to navigate the good, the bad, and the resolutions. I know that's how I feel anyway. It's just part of us. Okay, so Karen's thinking the opposite. I get it. I understand there is a dilemma there.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And look, I've had a few industry people tell me lately that they would rather employ someone with no industry or a bit of industry experience and a really solid soft skill set, put them through university for the technical stuff, rather than a high-end graduate with really good technical skills and no soft skill base.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking we need to probably be more in the middle, because some people, the technical side of it, they just don't ever get, and they'll always struggle to get to the root cause of a problem. It's really, for me, under the incident management nose rather than the implementation piece. So, yeah, it's a tough one. So I think overall for everybody, you need to have both. You need to have both.
It seems like a very legacy cultural issue within the industry that, you know, you didn't need to have soft skills 5, 10, 15 years ago, whereas now everyone I know is talking about them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, it's a really hard one to know what the balance of it is. But look, they also, with our industry, you know, people say geeky or that sort of thing. Now it sort of ends up a bit cool and all that sort of stuff, but it all fundamentally comes down to having those core skill sets of the technology. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So Karen said here, Sophia only allows people's skill levels only as high as your lowest generic skill. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And look, Karen, you've made a really good point in the Sophia framework. Most of the components of that, or the higher proportion, are soft skill based, not just technical. And I think it's a fantastic framework. And if anyone here hasn't gone through the My Sophia self-assessment on the website, have a little look, because it's a great way to identify where you need to have that full rounded approach to your skill set for your discipline.
That's actually another interesting thing. The other question I have, and it goes into the next I'm talking about, is do you start to specialise in your technology, or do you become more of a generalist? And are our businesses and our industry going to need for the future? That's a very interesting challenge. I'm more of a generalist, but I have some specialist areas of expertise. The total generalist, I wonder how they'd actually be able to keep up to date with lots of the new technologies. The way that I approach it is making sure I have 1 or 2, probably 3 areas of specialisation that I always keep totally up to date with. And that gives me enough of that deep dive technology to keep into the capabilities of being up to date with tech. I could never be across the whole lot. Nobody can. So for me, it's to pick 2 or 3. I think also it's good to have a balance of not just one really detailed technology. Because technology changes so much, it's really worth having a couple of strings to your bow, and it's also worth having them in a little bit of different disciplines. I just don't think it hurts. You know, that you've got, perhaps you know something about digital transformation, and perhaps your others might be, you know, something about the new pieces of what they're doing with Wi-Fi. You know, do 2 or 3 things that are actually different parts of the technical spectrum, and then just make sure that you keep them. That's just my thoughts about how I try and keep more current with things as well. And of course, having lots and lots of tech around, as I've talked about before. This leads into one of the questions we had last time, was around AI, machine learning, all that sort of thing. Not my specialty, but I had a bit of a reflection about that, and what is it and what that means to me. I have a background in mathematics, and so when I did some more reading about it, it's very much about probability and being able to learn things with predictions and degrees of certainty. So it's not like, I sort of thought it's just coding and make sure you have every single piece of coding possibilities, that the way that we used to do things. It's really about using more of that probability, and the feedback loop being the learning. So yeah, it was really interesting to read more about that, for it to be able to be not necessarily a right or wrong answer in a piece of code. It's actually what the most likely probability is, and then keep going down that route. So I still put it all in context, though, of my original, you know, how computers work. However, the other interesting thing that I came across was some latest thinking about robots. And I've worked in a lot of industries where we've had robots in manufacturing plants, which were really quite interesting. They do lots of packaging and all that sort of thing. But as you know, they've tried to do a lot more robots that actually look like people. You've even seen, I think there was somebody who married one the other day, wasn't there, Ross? I think there was in the press somewhere, quite odd.
I missed that one.
But there's a lot of thinking now around the fact that in the workplace, it's actually better to not have a robot that looks like a person, or even has things that remotely look like people, because that's where people get frightened of technology. So I thought that was really interesting, that, yeah, if you're putting something out there, don't make it look like it's going to actually take over your job or the world. Make it look a bit more non-human-like, perhaps, which I think is a little bit different to what they've done previously. So that was just an interesting aspect as well. Yeah. Another question for next time as well, I think, is I'm interested in how people are using gamification that we talked about last time to reward, as a reward system, and being competitive in the teams, because I did some more research on that, and there's not a lot of really great examples of what people are doing out there. There's sort of the theory of it, but yeah, not a lot of how people are actually using that as a reward system. I've seen a few at some seminars I've been about where, you know, people get rewarded for the time it takes to code, or how many less defects they have, but I'd like to see it maybe in a broader context. So what have we got here? I want to know if we're using Internet of Things devices to make business techie. Can we update the system, as I currently have a concern about ransomware? Yeah, this is the problem, that some of those Internet of Things endpoints are actually not smart enough to be able to be in the mainstream patching, because we can patch servers, Microsoft put out their patches, all these sorts of things, but things like printers, for instance, they've got hard drives, they've got BIOS, they've got all of the stuff like a computer, but they don't have all of the smarts around them. So, yeah, the ransomware pieces at the moment, I think, are fairly mainstream and targeting, people who are opening emails and on computers. But, gee, there is a big exposure out there for dumber devices. Certainly, I've seen in other places where it's those sorts of things like your printers or your video conference machines and those sorts of things that are actually more open, because you forget that they're actually have smarts as well. And it used to be really easy. You shut your door at night and that's it, because things weren't networked other than one pipe into your data center. Now so many things are over Wi-Fi, so many things are connected to the internet, that you have to think much more broadly about these things. Like even HoloLens, it's a Windows PC. You have to patch it, I would think. Interesting. Home security, same thing. Everybody have a home security system there? The chances are it's hooked back to a system somewhere. I wonder does anybody have stuff where they actually do open and close their doors and everything now? I've heard some new houses have it. Terrible to say, but I don't think I'd be ready for that yet at home. I'd need to know that it was actually secure enough. So I'd go actually through my outsourcing service provision checklist, I would think, to make sure it was secure. And they probably wouldn't understand half the things I talked about, I suppose. Going to be very interesting. Okay, so again, that goes back to the shadow IT thing we were talking about. A lot of people probably don't know what actual devices are hanging out there on your network. Yeah. Have you guys ever put something extra out there? You got anything at home, Ross?
As in device-wise?
Yeah, because you can get fridges now.
Yeah, okay. No, but we're considering getting a smart TV the next time we get one.
Yeah, I think the smart TVs are fairly dumb. I think they just hook to the internet, but
yeah,
they will become more and more smarter as we go along, definitely. I have a thing at home where I got from the city council that monitors my and shows me my electricity usage, so I can see which systems that what's using more electricity. That's really useful, but at the moment it's just inside the house. But gee, if we hooked that up to the internet, that could be interesting. Giving people visibility of all sorts of stuff that you're doing inside your house. Definitely.
Yeah. What about sorry?
The other thing that exposes your business too is with people working from home a lot, that you're on their Wi-Fi and could be connected to anything.
Yeah.
So the security, looking at security from a endpoint security point of view, or also then protecting your important assets and pieces, I think is the best place to start.
What about those smart lights and things that you can, put? I think Apple sell them there, a couple of $100, and you can put them in a normal light switch, and you can control that from your mobile device. Would that kind of fall into that basket?
If it was just the close Bluetooth, it probably not. But I would think eventually you're going to end up with. Well, I know some of us have servers and things at home that do lots of monitoring and doing your music and your security system and your lights. So you have to think about those things at home. Again, this is where we can be really great advice givers for our family and friends, because people don't even think about that potentially being a problem. They'll just go and buy it, assume it's right, and just plug it in. Oh, Telstra is selling them now. There you go. Works through Wi-Fi.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And so it works through your Wi-Fi. Yeah, so it works with your Wi-Fi at home. So if your device is connected, as the same as your Wi-Fi as those of your light bulbs, they work.
There you go. There you go.
That's scary.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We need to be knowledgeable enough so that it's not scary for us, so we can be quite comfortable to give other people the sort of advice. Otherwise, Ross, we'd do nothing. If we were totally risk adverse, we would do nothing. That's for sure. Okay, so I just wanted to now just go through some of the things that I've found recently, the actual techie bits that I have come across that I think is really cool. Again, last time I said about the Golem sharing computer space, sharing spare computer power, I still think that's got some legs. I'm going to perhaps do more of an investigation in that for me. There's a thing in the crowdfunding space called Circuit Scribe that I think is quite interesting, you know, to do with being able to get right down the techie level of circuits. Stuff being done at the Internet of Things level as well. There's a thing called Shape Heart with heart rate tracking. There's so many personal device tracking things now. Be a bit careful though, because a lot of those things you put the app on and then it gets uploaded to some country somewhere and have all of your you know, personal heart rate monitors and everything there. Whether I'd do that, I don't think right now I would. Just not 100% sure. There's another thing I saw, there's a thing called Degree, which I thought was really cool, another Internet of Things. It's actually an in-ear thermometer for children where you can actually put it on your child and it monitors their ear temperature, say that they're sick overnight and whatever, and you can actually monitor it without having to go in and wake them up. I thought that really cool stuff, really, really nice. And Ross and I were talking about the other day, just before. Ross has had some experience with the 3D printer stuff, and I was trying to find some relevance around 3D printers other than just for like models and that sort of stuff. But I actually saw on the internet a thing called Clay XYZ, which is a 3D clay printer. So you could actually do a pot and be really quite creative. So I thought that was just extraordinary. So thinking about the 3D stuff now, not just, as Ross said, he said, it's not like just printing something multiple times anymore. It's actually a bespoke thing that you get to use just as a printer being the mechanism to create things rather than with your hands. But I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, additive technology is a term they're starting to use a lot more for it.
What did you say, Ross?
Additive technology is a term that they're using for 3D printing a lot more because it's a bit more relevant, because usually every process in 3D printing, it's adding something to it, when they print it layer by layer by layer. So that's a term they're starting to use more to get away from the printing, that mass scale and quickness of that is perceived with it.
And it's going to be interesting, that balance of manufacturing compared to what you do at home, because I also saw that I think Tesla has come out with the tiles for your roof now that are actually solar panels.
Yeah, so, and apparently they're meant to be tougher than your existing tiles, and you can pre-order them now as well.
That's right. So these sorts of things, but then again, you'll get into the security conversation and the owning technology conversation around, okay, you're going to have something to store the energy with the batteries, and are you going to pump it back into the grid or not? So you're ending up just mainstream owning technology that you have to maintain in some form. You have to understand a little bit in some form. So I think our technical expertise across the board are going to be so much more required in the mainstream home level. So I think the questions of our users of us are just going to become more and more and more personal, and I think that's a great thing. We just have to be ready for it. We have to be very ready for it. Just a couple of other things that I've come across. As you know, Amazon's coming to Australia, which, again, good, bad, indifferent. I think there'll be pluses and minuses around it. But the Amazon Dash stuff really interests me, where you have this thing that, the little Wi-Fi thing that, say, and I had a picture before. It was actually in your toilet and right next to your toilet paper. When you ran out, you press the button and Amazon would order it and send you a replacement. So it's really the Kanban pieces of work that have been done over the years with Toyota and many other companies is now becoming, into your own home space. So also the concepts that of technology in business, like Kanban, like electronic data interchange that we did between companies, is now not just between companies, it's actually home and businesses. So all of these things that we know about are going to be so much more relevant, not just to business, but to our friends and family as well. Other things that I find of interest at the moment, I don't know whether I talked to you about last time, is Curb. It's an app where you could just use if somebody's in a particular suburb and they've got a spare parking space in their driveway, you can actually go and park there. I think that's really cool. The work that Dragon are doing with their voice recognition apps and things, for instead of data entry on on your iPad or your PC or whatever it is, the voice recognition stuff now is getting really, really awesome, and I think that's going to be much more interactive. It's not so much just like Siri and Cortana just asking him a question. It's actually doing your business through your voice rather than typing. I actually thought the other day, I really don't write much anymore. I really don't. I type and then I use my your finger on your devices, but not much writing. But I think that the big one of the other things that I want to get into some more is the voice, because I'm not a very good typist. And then it's keeping up to date with things like the World Droid app and those sorts of things, just to immerse yourself in the technology that's going on. So what have we got here? So connecting to my loud neighbour's wireless printer and printing a few pages. Well, that's right. How many people open up your phone and you can see your neighbour's Wi-Fi? I think it happens to everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
And something we talked about in that last security webinar is most people still have the generic admin and password, like password 1 for it, and changing that is a simple thing. Changing the name of it as well.
Well, I would suggest that most people's routers have the generic vendors' passwords on it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's where there's a lot of breaches purely based on that.
So that's interesting, isn't there? So at the moment, a lot of the break-ins and everything like that is sort of very physical. They go and steal physical things, but it certainly can turn, with Wi-Fi in particular, into something quite different about your information and how much you share. Definitely.
And what are your thoughts? There was that scam going around recently where they were saying, and everyone was saying, don't pick up. If someone answers you, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? And you were going, yes, yes, yes. They were using that information to go deeper, and it's almost identity fraud. Did you see stuff about that?
Yeah, I did, and I just couldn't understand how that could happen. It seemed a little strange to me, because one, how would they know who you were? And then what systems do I use at the moment where my voice is the recognition for activation? I couldn't think of any that I particularly use. Like even when I ring Telstra, you tell their IVR what your company name is or what your name is, and I don't know, my accent's probably rubbish, so I always have to talk to an analyst because it can't work out what I'm saying. So I didn't quite get it. I don't know if anybody else has got any ideas about what may or may not have been cases that they could use somebody's voice recognition is used by the ATO. Is it really? Oh, the ATO. That's pretty risky. Isn't that terrible? I go to the risk first, don't I, Ross? That's what I said I wouldn't do.
A techie at heart.
Several government departments. Isn't that interesting? I don't think, isn't that awful? I don't think I like that, Ross.
Ooh, there's some content for next time.
It is, and it's because I don't know enough about it. It is. So this is, again, the reason why you need to try and immerse yourself in all of these things that come across, to at least be aware of these things and what it actually means and what the real possibilities are. That's really interesting. So, yep, that'll be a next time, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll open it up for some more questions and maybe topics.
Yeah, no, that's been really good. It's insightful, and yeah, I'm keen to look at some of these apps you've called. The Curb one looks pretty cool. I'll check that out. And yeah, this Amazon, I don't know what to think of it. It's all exciting and new, but there's so many different conflicting stories in market, isn't there?
I don't know, though. They say, though, that if you actually go and just shop with a list and only go to that, buy those things you need, you save, up to 40% of your shop, right? If you just focus on those things. So if all it does is replenish to the level that you've set in your house, I reckon it might save you money.
Yeah.
But then what do you do like me when I love to go shopping? But I do a lot of online shopping, so I'm quite okay of not actually being able to see and touch things to purchase. But whether I'd go to the point of just setting a level for my consumables and things and let it go, businesses have been doing it for a very, very long time successfully.
Fridges do it too. You could do it from some fridges.
Yeah, but again, that's going to be on my list. I don't know how that works. How does it know how many tomatoes I've eaten unless I tell it?
I think you can push like a pre-order sort of system.
Yeah, so you might as well just have an electronic list.
Yeah.
The bit that I like is when it will get to the point where it knows what level on my milk carton it is, and it makes sure that the Milko turns up with the new one. I'm hoping that all that stuff turns back into the local people delivering things to me with my local shop and my local Milko and my local bread person, rather than the big, because I think the big companies will struggle with that. So another bit of a controversy there. I'm hoping it turns back into the local people just dropping off, my milk and my bread when I'm ready.
Small business. There's a really good point there in Alibaba from someone in the audience.
Okay, so yeah, I use AliExpress a lot. I use just their ordinary thing that I have my credit card there. Pay through apps such as WhatsApp and Line, though, through barcode scanning. Yeah, look, I actually took my banking off my phone, which again, look, here we go, I end up too conservative at times. I'm concerned about leaving something open all the way without extra, at least 2 levels of security for me to make payments. I know that I always use my MasterCard, so I'm only ever exposed if I don't get a product to $50. But the hassles of trying to get it back are terrible. But 2-factor authentication, at least for me, is so important. However, I have been using my credit card to use tap and go and that sort of thing quite a bit. Again, the main thing that makes me feel comfortable is that it could only be, I think it's at $100 each time. So I think for me, it's about making sure it's a minimal risk instead of risking my whole bank account. So I'd probably be happy to risk an account that had a little bit of money in it, but not the house sort of idea. So for me, again, it's the risk piece. That, yeah, happy to use those payment options, but not when it's an account that's got a lot of cash in it. Is that too conservative? Perhaps it is.
No, it's smart, I think, and it takes effort and takes a little bit of thought, and I think that's sometimes where we get caught up in the convenience of technology and what it does, whereas we forget sometimes about the risks and mitigating them.
And the reason why I took the banking app off my phone was because I got sick of putting the PIN code in it, because I'll put the PIN code on it or my thumbprint to be able to be secure. And I got sick of it going to sleep. So it was convenience. Isn't that terrible?
That's all right. Has anyone in the audience had any security or, issues in regards to that, or any sort of, breaches that they want to share, and what you did to prevent that?
Yeah, for me, it's about being at least aware of it, making a conscious decision, I think, Ross. And that's where, again, we can help if we're really knowledgeable about what is good practice and what's not, what sort of things you need.
What about Apple Pay?
Yeah, I'm not an Apple person. I'm an Android person. I used to have Apple things, but I like to buy lots of tech, so a bit expensive for me. So I don't know much about Apple Pay. I would think that they're probably all fairly similar. I don't know. For me, just the fact that I know I'm only exposed to $50 or $100, I can live with that. But I have to assume that I could lose that amount. What I read was it conveyed you won't be charged by the bank as a business owner. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, some people not with the NFC. Yeah, me too. I'm just not quite right with that one yet, because I know that you can hijack and see just from being in proximity to get your card details. So, yeah. So yeah, that one, again, I think it's being really aware of what it does and can't do. The sad thing is there's people using these technologies just because, that they've got a phone, and Telstra or whoever, they just sell one to them, and then you put all these apps on and they actually don't know what the risks and things are.
And Joseph's come with a comment saying that, his thoughts that Apple Pay is more secure than using cards.
Well, we know that cards can be easily, and identities can be easily hijacked. And that goes again back to our voice recognition piece. It will be a component, I'm sure, at some point. But with the random stuff on the phone, just saying yes, I think that it'd be a big stretch for them to find your account and your person and at this point. But hey, it means though that somebody's got your voice saved somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Risk is interesting for me. I sit there and it's probably healthy that you have the conversations with people about, what do you think of that? Do you think that's high risk? What do you think somebody will do to it? And going sort of back to the front of what we talked about again, it's really about talking to your users out there, talking to the people that you're providing systems for, to know what sort of things they're likely to do or not do. And education on security, I think, is probably the biggest thing that you can do. And that, again, goes to your reputation, that if they trust you in relation to technology, when you put out an alert relating to security about hints and tips or processes, they will listen to you. That credibility is really important.
Yeah, we had them straight away this week. As soon as they heard about those breaches, I think that the next day, or not even the next day, we had emails going through the business on what we should do and how we should approach it.
That's actually interesting. I've seen a lot of that go around, but see, for us, they're used to getting those messages from us. So we already had that credibility. It's interesting to see it happen in a business where that was the first time that they'd had any education. So hopefully something like this will then have people try and, if you're in a position to, is just do it more often. Put it in your schedule for every 3 months to do a note about security around to the business. Do a lunch and learn. Get yourself in front of people. Really, really worthwhile. And you get more confidence too.
Yeah, and you get insight too into some of the challenges and where the skill levels and understanding is in the business, no doubt.
That's exactly right. And we go right back then to the soft skills. So it's about practice, 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 about talking technology. Pick a buddy who knows you really well to start with, but then maybe get 2 or 3 people, or, you know, do a lunch and learn. They're the sorts of things, just baby steps. And eventually you'll be talking to, you know, thousands of people in an auditorium.
Yeah, fantastic. Does anyone else have any questions? We might, we're getting close to time today. Does anyone have anything for Fiona or any suggestions on what they might want to look at next time, or what Fiona can present next time? Good feedback too, a lot of info and very impressive. You address information you don't know a lot about straight away, Fiona. I think you've captive audience there.
That's all right. So we're certainly going to talk about, I'm going to do some investigation about these voice thing with the ATO. That's fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah, excellent.
And we'll do some polls too next, guys. I'll come up with some of the polls from the stuff we talked about today, so that we can get a bit of a broader perspective of some of the topics.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Right, I haven't really got any questions, and look, Fiona, I want to thank you again for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating and eye-opening, and we look forward to next time, and we'll schedule a webinar and let everyone know that when that will be on. Remember to check our Facebook page and sign up to that if you haven't had a chance, because that's where we do a lot of promotion for this activity, rather than spam our members, because we all get sick of spams. So, yeah. Looking forward to seeing everyone, and thanks again, Fiona.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See you later. Bye-bye.